And welcome to Impact 2025, our continuing conversation where we talk about all different types of topics from religion, race, current events, everything that you could think of. This is our open conversation, and this is your opportunity to participate in this open conversation. And you do that by you typing your questions and your comments into the comments section. So um, feel free to type in whatever you want. Again, your questions. If you're questioning what I'm saying or you have a question about what I'm saying, your comments. If you think that there's something that you have valuable to add to the conversation, go ahead and put it in there. This is a conversation. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way scenario. And so, as conversations go, please feel free to type your stuff into the comments. So whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, just go into the comment section, type what you want to do. We bring it up on the screen and respond to it. As always, I'd like to remind people of the other offerings that we have. We have at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, that's today. We have from 7 to 7:45 a time of prayer, where everyone in the ministry prays generally at the same time. And so please feel free to join us for that. It's not prayer from the whole 7 to 7:45. It's whatever amount of time between there, you can pray for the whole 7 to 7:45. But whatever time in there that you feel that you want to pray. At 7 o'clock on Thursdays, we have Thursday Thirst, our weekly Bible study. I always encourage people to join Bible study so you can go into the Bible and understand it a little more. And then on Sundays at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we have worship service. That is on Facebook, YouTube, and if you are in the area, the address is on the screen. Please feel free to join us. That is worship on Sundays. All right. And like always, we want to just hop right into it. Impact 2025. Today on May the 20th. One of the big stories that's up, and we touched on it last week, and we're going to touch on it again, is there is a huge story about immigration. That's been a common theme throughout the whole entire year. However, this story is a little bit different. It's not about taking people away from the United States and taking immigrants out. It is bringing immigrants in, refugees, as you want to say, in. And there has been some stories in South Africa of people who have supposedly been oppressed, and these people need to be saved and brought to the United States. And so let me rephrase that to what it really is. There have been some false claims and some stories about people going through a genocide in South Africa. The scenario that's going on is the white South Africans, called Africans, are complaining about some of the new laws, or more specifically, one of the new laws that was put in place. And this new law is about land. The white South Africans are only 7% of the population, yet, depending on what report you look at, they own over 70% of the land. 7% of the population owns over 70% of the land. And a lot of that is farming land. And so the government of South Africa has decided that if it is deemed necessary, they will take the land and some compensation for the land. But they can just outright take the land if they negotiate back and forth in good faith and there's no conclusion that can come with appropriate compensation. This rule is here in the United States. It's called eminent domain. It's very similar to our eminent domain laws here in the United States, whereas the government can invoke eminent domain if there is a piece of property that is deemed essential for the government for their activities and whatever activities they may be. The government has the ability to take the land and in good faith also offer compensation to the land. So, for example, they can come and take your house and your land if it is deemed necessary. That's been used oftentimes throughout history, railroad tracks, other things like that, the interstate highway defense system that was set up many years ago. So back to South Africa. So that same type of law, a similar type of law was put into place, and that would significantly affect or could significantly affect white South Africans who own 70% of the land and are only 7% of the population. Here's the most interesting part. Even though the law has been passed, even though the government has the authority, they have yet to use it. Let's be clear, they have yet to use it. And because of all of this, there have been some people who have been screaming foul, like, oh no, we're being oppressed. White South Africans really no longer run the government. They used to, during the times of apartheid, control the government. Black South Africans were not allowed to be in the government. Only these white South Africans were allowed to be in the government. They were oppressing the population. And so things have changed. The South Africans actually, in a sense, run South Africa now. And these people who have come over and took over no longer have the power that they once had. But they still own 70% of all the land. And so as a result here in the United States, and I know this is a long intro into what's going on, but you got to really understand what the situation, the scenario is. What's going on here in the United States is that the current president, Donald Trump, has decided that these South Africans who their reports, or they're making false claims that these South Africans are being oppressed, that these South Africans, there's some kind of white genocide going on over there. They have no evidence that anything such is going on, but he feels that they are so oppressed that they need to be able to come here to the United States. That they need to be able to seek asylum here in the United States and move to the front of the line and be granted citizenship, early path to citizenship. And so they're hopping the line in front of everybody else. Now the irony is that at the beginning of the year, when Trump got into power, he said that the United States did not have the ability to really take in all of these refugees, asylum seekers from different countries, and basically shut down the refugee program of allowing new refugees to come and seek asylum here in the United States. Let's be clear what that actually means. The people who are coming here seeking asylum, people who are coming here are refugees. They are not illegal. They're not coming in here illegally. They're coming in here, coming to the country, and then they're presenting themselves as, hey, I'm here because I need safety. I'm here because I'm seeking asylum, because something is going on in my home country. Most of the time, it's going to be violence, political violence, economic violence. It's going to be violence, or it's going to be a safety issue, and as a result, they need to seek asylum. And so you're asking the government for the ability to stay here because it's safer here than where you are. And so that's what asylum is. And so right now, the asylum program, refugee program, asylum program is basically shut down here in the United States. The Trump administration just won the ability to revoke the legal status of over 300,000 Venezuelans who were seeking asylum here in the United States. Under the Biden administration, there's about 360,000 Venezuelans who were leaving their country due to violence, and due to physical violence and economic conditions that came into the United States, and they just revoked their status. And so instantaneously overnight, they go from being, well, not instantaneously overnight, but they go from being legal, being able to be here legally, to now being here illegally, just like that. So you wake up one day, you're going to work, you're doing whatever you're doing, and one day you're legal, next day you're not. And so as they get rid of 360,000 people from Venezuela, their legal ability to be here in the United States, they're granting white South Africans, and it is only white South Africans, the ability to come over to the United States and jump the line and be on a accelerated path to being citizens here in the United States. So there's a long way of just wrapping it up. So that's what's going on. The Episcopal Church, who worked with the refugee program, the federal government refugee program, they have They have a partnership with the federal government when it comes to refugees. Um, had to put out a statement that they will no longer work with the federal government because of what they perceive as an unfair situation when it comes to bringing the white South Africans over here as refugees while you're turning your back on other refugees of color for no other reason than basically just because they're white people. And so the Episcopal Church has ended their partnership with the federal government in the refugee program due to this issue. I don't know if you know who the Episcopal Church is, but you could bet there's a good amount of them who are conservative, Republican, and it's shocking that you would think that that group would then turn around and say, "We're not going to deal with this." And so, the comment of what's going on is you see how the church has reacted, or you see how one part of the church has reacted. Two quick things. One, how should the rest of us react? Or should the rest of us react? And then two, why have we developed an environment where the government can feel free to do something blatantly racist? And so, again, we're not, similar to what we talked about last week, there's no need to debate whether or not this is racist or not. It is. If you disagree, it's unfortunate that you have your head the same. But it's very clear that this is a racist activity, and it is a message and a signal to send to everybody else that the President of the United States and his administration is going to do whatever racist activities they want to do. They can do it in your face, above ground, and there's nothing that you can do about it, and they do not care what you think about it. And so the Episcopal Church has put out a message, and it's very clear: we're not dealing with this, or we don't support this. So then what should the rest of us do? The rest of us have a responsibility to speak out against it as well. And now the rest of us, we don't necessarily have these refugee partnerships with the federal government. So, our statement would be a little bit different. But should the rest of the religious community, faith-based community decide, all right, we have to stand up against blatant racism. This is not debatable. This is not debatable. This is, all right, these people over here who are farmers, we're just going to bring them over here to the United States. They got money and they're white. There is no genocide. Nobody's been gotten killed. There is no situation where they haven't even been taking the land yet. That hasn't happened. The government has not invoked the law to take land yet. And so let's just bring over all of these people. Let's take a plane, a United States chartered plane, fly to South Africa, pick people up, bring them back to the United States, say, hey, you are refugees, and let's push you to being legal United States residents, to being citizens, and let you jump the line of everybody else who's in war-torn countries, everybody else who has been allies to the United States, thinking about a lot of the people in Afghanistan. They're jumping some of those people who were allies to us during wars and during skirmishes and whatever else you want to call it, purely because of your race. What should be the response of the church, if there should be any? Again, the Episcopal Church has said their response. What should be the response of the rest of us if one is needed? Comment. Whose land will they take to give to these Africans? That's a very interesting question, because at the end of the day, these Africans, these white South Africans, stole all of this land. And, that people can debate how they want to say it. When they came over here, the Dutch came and they paid for some of the land, or they hoodwinked and whatever. They stole the land. So they came they stole the land, and so you're taking the land. Whose land are you taking? Are you taking stolen land, or are you taking the Africans' land back to the South Africans? That's a very good question. You can't steal what's yours. I don't think you can steal what's yours. That's a great point. But even if it, I know me, and I say this all the time. I know me, you know, I would take all of their land and kick all of them out. Now that's not the right thing to do. I can acknowledge that. The truth of the matter is, you look at these people and you say, well, you didn't steal the land, your ancestors stole the land. Well, for me, I say I don't care. I would take all of that land and give it back to the original South Africans, or the only South Africans, not these visitors, I'll say. But they're not doing that. They're nicer denying it. What they're doing is they're saying we're only going to take what's necessary and what's needed. 7% of the population having 70% of the land. If we need the land for the rest of the population, the other 93% of the population needs more of the land. That makes a lot of sense. But the issue is not even that. The issue is at the end of the day, these people, there's no genocide here. There's no violence here. We're talking about taking a little bit of the vast amount of wealth that you stole, that you accumulated off of thievery, that you accumulated not in good faith. And again, it wasn't you personally, but you're benefiting off of the crimes of your ancestors. And so we're talking about taking away a little bit of that and not even being egregious about it like I would be. That's not refugee ready. That's not asylum worthy. You should not be able to come to the United States and bring you a little bit of money and change that you got and then be able to just live luxury over here and jump the line on people who have actually gone through some things. But it's purely just because of their brown skin. Now, the disappointing part is because you have a lot of people who are Trump supporters, who are brown, black and brown, Republicans who are black and brown, conservatives who are black and brown, people who go to church, call themselves Christians who are black and brown, who won't say anything about this issue. They've seen it, they act like they didn't see it, but they won't fess up or say anything about it. That's disappointing. And as a little aside, shame on you. But as a church, is there a responsibility to make a statement here? And I think so. I think so. I do. I think so. I don't know whether or not as large organizations we have to make an outright statement and say that this is unfair and this is not okay. But we, as individuals, as individual churches, as individuals, maybe on a smaller scale, I do think it needs to be a reminder that we support our neighbor and love our neighbor. And clarify that we love and support our neighbor regardless of their social economic status, how much money they have, and their race. White neighbors should not get preferential treatment to neighbors who are Hispanic, neighbors who are black. And so white South Africans should not be able to jump over people who are coming from war-torn countries or people who are coming from places where the economics are just terrible and they can't feed their families or whatever. Or I don't even care. It could be you shouldn't be able to jump the line over somebody who just got here before you just because they're brown. And so I think that a reminder is not that we even have to even point more so to this situation and talk about how racist it is and talk about how disgusting the president and his administration are when it comes to race relations. We don't even have to point to all that. What we can just point to is the fact that we need to reiterate who we are and that loving thy neighbor is not conditional upon your background. I can love my neighbor if they're white, but not if they're brown, not if they're black, not if they are from a Muslim country, or not if they are this or not if they're that. It shouldn't be all of these conditions placed on loving thy neighbor. And it's very clear that some people are okay with that. But I think the church's reminder, because that's not even political or anything like that. It's just to reiterate who we are and who we're supposed to be. And remind ourselves, remind our kids, remind our friends and family, remind those who are always looking at Christians and saying, well, what is Christianity all about? Let's just remind everyone that who we are and what we're supposed to be about is loving our neighbor, and there's no precursor to that. We need to understand that white privilege is okay. Though there are people who are economically privileged, white privilege is still more important. Yeah, I think that it's very clear that a message is trying to be sent, and a firm, clear message is trying to be sent out to everyone here in the United States. It's sent about white privilege, and it's sent about you can't do anything about it. It's very clear. It's very clear, and it's a twofold message because these people are white and they are wealthy, and those if you have that combo, then you have privileges above everybody else. Because it's not even just white privilege; it's white wealthy privilege. This is a clear race issue. So it's letting you know if you are brown and rich, you still don't qualify. Because we are talking about all the other African countries and many other countries where people are black and have money. They're jumping them because you don't have the combo money and race. Um, and then it's of course the issue of money. So yeah, that white privilege, just that white privilege, that is only for that the few that have money as well. But it's a clear message that's being sent, and that's why a clear message needs to be sent back. I think a clear message needs to be sent back from all of us as a reminder to one another. There's nothing that we can do per se. I'll say in a certain sense. There's very nothing. There's very little that we can do administration wise. As a country, we've made this big and we have to lie in it. But that does not mean we have to just sit here and be quiet and let people think whatever they want to think about how we're supposed to do. And so I think we need to be vocal and just reminding people of who we are, what we represent. And so that's I think the church's responsibility. That is our responsibility to remind people that this is not okay, and we love our neighbor, all of our neighbors. We talked last week about the fact that we have a new pope. New pope kind of leaned into that, loving thy neighbor, making sure that we understood that people across the world need to be neighbor to each other. An anti-war message that he was sending out. Once you establish this divide between wealthy white people, wealthy people, and everyone else, then that helps to validate all of the other terrible things that you want to do to people. It helps to validate, let's take it away services and let's take money away from people and take away assistance from people throughout foreign and abroad, because that's what's been going on. And so it validates that type of behavior. And then when it comes to just individuals and their interactions with one another, it validates that kind of behavior. You don't have to treat everybody the same. You only have to treat the people who have that special privilege with the ultimate respect. Everybody else you can just treat like trash. And so it's a clear message that's being sent. And if we don't stop that message, or if we don't counter that message, then it'll filter down just to everyday people in everyday life. You got to push back against stuff. Otherwise, it just happens. It's not good enough to sit back and shake your head and say, that's a shame. You have to vocalize your objection to things. And that's where we are. That's where we are. That's our responsibility. That is our clear responsibility. Now I'll talk on my own personal level here. I think that it's becoming closer to that time. We had a very effective, and people they don't talk about this enough. There was a very effective campaign against Target, because the Target stores by the churches, by churches and the church families, against Target stores. And the campaign was that you don't go to Target for 40 days. Target took a massive hit from the campaigns. Black people were not going to Target. It's very clear and apparent. There were even videos online of people walking into Target, walking up to black people and asking them, what are you doing up in here? And most of them knew what was going on. They knew what time it was. And they were like, you know what, you're right. And I tried to slide in here real quick, but I'm sure I shouldn't have done this. It was very effective. So Target felt the heat now. it's over. Some people are still not going to Target. I didn't go to Target anyway because I think it's overpriced. But I know people are still not going to Target. But those are the type of things, those little jabs, flexing your power is what we need to do. And I think we need to figure out how we need to flex our power going forward as a people, as Christian people, as Black people, flexing our power just to remind folks that you can't do whatever you want to do. Every once in a while, you just need to show, hey, you can't just be out here acting however you want to act. And I think it's come to that time where we need to figure out what the next step is and what the next power play is to just remind people of who we are and what we can do and how much value we bring to the table. Comment. The problem with many of us is that we embrace whiteness as a norm and we seek to be what we can never achieve. We need to learn to be who God created us and gifted us to be. Yeah, absolutely. You sitting there, and I think one of the problems is with this one is learn who God created us to be. And I think some of the problems is that some people look at whiteness and their God is whiteness instead of their God being God. And so they're not doing the same thing the rest of us are doing when it comes to God and our faith and what we think is right and wrong. They're just looking to be white or get as close to being white as they can. And unfortunately, I think that is a path that some people, especially some people of color, take. And that's not okay. You need to love who you are. And I know that that's a weird thing in this time and day. And I know it gets real weird because we always want to say, well, be whoever you want to be. And, you can be this and you can be that. You hear reports of people who are saying that, white people who say that they feel like they're Black and Black people who say that they feel like they're white. And so now they're we call it transracial and things like that. No. Love who you are. And I think that's some of the problem is that if you're Black, love your Blackness. If you're brown, love your brownness. If you're Hispanic, love your Hispanicness. If you're African American, love the fact that you're African American. Whatever. If you're white, love the fact that you're white. Whatever you are, love what you are and who you are. Don't be trying to chase somebody else or somebody else's ideas of who you should be. Marco Rubio, I'm looking at you. And so I think that that's some of the problem of what we have here in the United States. And we need to learn to love who God created us to be. And God didn't, I don't think, and this is my personal opinion, I don't think God created us to be trying to constantly change ourselves into something else or chasing something else. I think we're supposed to be who we are and come to terms with who we are, love who we are, we can improve upon it. Yeah. Probably didn't like that, but that's okay. All right, we're at our time. I appreciate the comments that came in. This is a serious and significant topic. I think I encourage everyone to talk about this with your kids. Talk about this with your friends. Talk about this with your family. I think this is a topic that needs to be discussed, no matter how uncomfortable it is. They say the things that you don't talk about is race and politics, and religion. Race, religion, and politics. You don't talk about those things. If you go to a dinner table and you talk about those things, the fight's going to break out. If you got some friends and you bring that up, you may lose some of your friends. Those are the topics that need to be talked about. If I will say this, if you got friends and you can't talk about race, religion, and politics, those are not your friends. Those are just some people that you hang out with, but y'all not really friends because there's no depth to that relationship. And you should be able to talk and discuss those things. And so I think that we need to talk a little bit more. That's why we're here. That's what Impact is all about. And that's the opportunity to talk, communicate, and work through these issues. But we need to make sure that we talk about this particular issue of race, especially these South Africans, the South Africans and the Afrikaners who are Africans who are coming over here to the United States. And let's talk about why is it that we have a government that thinks it's okay to be racist. And let's make sure that we understand, our children understand, and our friends understand, our family understand that this is a topic that we need to discuss. And there's some action that needs to be had as a result. All right, thank you. As a reminder, again, on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we have prayer. Thursdays At 7 o'clock, we have Bible study on Thursday, and on Sundays at 10 o'clock, we have worship service. Please join us for all of these offerings, YouTube, Facebook, and again, in person if you can, if you're in the area. Thank you for all the comments and everybody, and have a good one.